Hello, welcome to part 2 of our procedural texture series. In the last video I showed you the differences between 2D and 3D procedural textures, and we're mostly going to be using 3D textures from here on out, but I would like to start this second video by making our first texture from scratch. And I thought about what we're going to make, and I've decided we're going to make a star field pattern. If you're making a sci-fi scene with spaceships and planets and stuff, you'd want to envelop your whole scene in stars. It's something I do a lot, and I think we're going to do this because it's going to be extremely simple. It's only going to take 2 modules, and it's going to look phenomenal. And before I get started, if you think about what's involved in wrapping your whole scene in a texture, you might think about making a massive sphere and just texturing it, and then you put your scene inside of it, and that's actually, it's terrible to do that, but in some applications that's all that's available to you. But Art of Illusion has a great feature. If you go over to the Scene menu, we have an environment option. And this environment drop-down menu I should say, lets you choose whether you want it to be a solid color or a diffusive or emissive texture. And the difference between these two is emissive emits light. And if you're doing something on global illumination where you want very realistic lighting, then you can actually have the stars in our texture emit light. But that's a little more advanced, and I'm not planning on covering that in this video. Diffusive is perfect for our needs. So now we can hit choose, and we're going to go here and make a procedural 3D texture. Okay. So the tricky part is knowing what modules you're going to need. And this is weird. It's probably not the greatest example of figuring out the modules you need, because I'm going to pick one that doesn't actually seem that it would have practical use for stars, but it will. I'm picking the cells module. And the second one you want, under color functions, is you want custom. This module, the pattern, and all the pattern modules, generate a pattern of 1s and 0s, or numbers between 1 and 0. And you take the output of this, put it to the input of this, and what this is going to do is, if the number coming out of here is 0, it's going to assign it with black. And if the number is 1, it's going to assign it with white. And if it's anything in between, it's going to assign it its respective value of gray. So this colorizes this digital pattern. Now we're going to throw that into diffuse, and you're going to see this pattern. It's exactly what it says on the box. It is a cell pattern. But how can we make this into stars? And that's where these other output options come in. We're going to delete this connection, take this middle one, and what this does is it's the same shapes, but it does a radial shading in every shape, which is what we're going to turn into stars. So you can kind of see these circle patterns, and we're going to just change the contrast and make them just little tiny points. But first we see that the circles are black and everything else is lighter, and we want that reversed. So what we're going to do is just double click on our custom color, and we're going to grab each handle, choose a color, and just pick white on this side and black on this side, just to reverse the two. And there we go. Now we kind of see these whitish blobs on a darker background, and we want to add a third point and change that to black, because really most of the texture is going to be black, just with some white dots. And now you can see what's going on here, and we can just drag this a little bit more to get some nice. Yeah, you know what? I think that's good. And right now they're very large, it's very sparse, but that's really all there is to this texture. If we hit OK and we try to render this, it's not going to look so good. I don't even know if we'll see anything. Nothing at all. So what went wrong? We have to change the mapping of this texture, because right now there's very few stars and we just happen to be looking at maybe this part where there was nothing. So we just want to scale this texture down a whole bunch so there's way more stars and they're tinier. And we can do that with the scale. I'm going to go right down to like 100th the size. And we'll see what that looks like. Pretty darn good. That's actually, I would say that's phenomenal. And if you want to, we can even change it more to be even smaller, not 0.5, 0.5. And I would say that's pretty much perfect. It is very tiny, it's 2 modules, takes up almost no disk space. The alternative way of doing this is to take a large image map that you find on the internet that NASA makes and you just wrap it around the whole scene. But when you actually render the scene, it looks really stretched and you need a massive texture in order to do this. Here, if you look close, every star is just 1 pixel. And it's very precise, very clean, and super easy to make, and looks phenomenal. So that is it for this one.